Kia ora and welcome to Swim Chats, a podcast about ocean swimming. I'm Shona Riddell, a writer, former journalist and swimmer from Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand. For each episode, I talk to a different guest from our swim community. Remember, if you have any questions, thoughts or suggestions, you can email me at swimchatswithshona@gmail.com or follow Swim Chats on Instagram. A few people have asked how they can support the podcast. The best way to support it is by listening to episodes, and you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss one. You can also leave a 5-star rating which recommends the podcast to other people. And for those who want to get more involved, I've set up a Patreon account which you can join to sponsor the show and become a swim buddy for $5 a month. As a swim buddy, you get a shout out on the podcast, access to a private group chat, advance notice of upcoming guests, and the opportunity to submit questions. To find out more, go to patreon.com/swimchats. The link is in the episode show notes and in the podcast description. But if that's not an option for you, that's totally fine. Being a listener is also awesome. Thank you. First of all, Susan, welcome to Swim Chats. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no problem. It's nice to meet you. Yeah.
I know you've just wrapped up the New Zealand Ice Swimming Championships down south, and it sounds like everything went well, and there may have been a few world records as well. Is that right?
Well, we went exceptionally well. We actually had, I'm pretty sure, probably more longer distance swims than have been done before, but I do need to check that. I'm not 100% sure, so I just can't see it on any of the records that have been done before. So probably don't quote me on that one.
Yeah, sure, no, fair enough. I'm keen to talk to you about the different distances. Just to clarify for listeners, the Ice Swimming Championships have been running since 2022. Is that right?
Yep.
So this has been your fourth event.
Yep.
And running St. Bathans, I have to admit, I needed to open Google Maps and have a look to see where St. Bathans was.
Yep.
It's a very small town in the South Island, and from what I read, it has quite an interesting history as well. It was a gold mining town, and what's the population of it? Do you know?
At the moment, 5.
Right.
Yep.
It's a very small town.
It was quite a decent sized hill, and the gold miners basically got rid of the hill and made it into quite a deep lake. So they spent a long time there.
From the pictures I saw, is it the Blue Lake? Is that what it's called? Yeah. So it just looked beautiful. And I know that each year you alternate between open water ice swims and swimming in a pool. Why is that? Why do you switch between them?
I think it's nicer to do the longer distances in the open water. You know, when you get to a mile in a swimming pool, going up and down a 25-meter pool gets a little bit boring. And it's such a cool place at St. Bathans. It's kind of magical. So the St. Bathans is more about personal achievement and personal challenge and getting a little bit further than you've done before. Or, can I actually swim, that sort of distance in that amount of time? Whereas at the pool, it's becoming more of a competition, and it's also our selection process for getting into the world champs. So the world ice swimming champs is every 2 years, and it's usually in Europe somewhere. So it has been in Russia before, but the last few years it's alternated between France and Italy. And I think next year there's going to be pretty fierce competition for getting into that team. We've got some awesome swimmers in New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you're one of the founders of the I just want to get the name right, the International Ice Swimming Association Aotearoa, New Zealand.
That's right.
Were you an ice swimmer before you founded the organization?
Yeah, kind of. So I first got into it 2020 basically, which was the COVID year, and because the pools were shut, we had to swim outdoors all winter. So we were doing that, and one of our friends decided that maybe we should go and swim in some cold lakes around down the South Island, and he'd heard about this thing called an ice mile. So I went down there pretty naive, not really knowing what I was letting myself in for, but it sounded like a cool opportunity. So we went down there and we swam in Whakatipu, Lake Hawea, Boak Lake, and then we went up in a helicopter to Lake Acheron. And I got out of the helicopter and jumped out, and it was in knee-depth snow. And my mind just flipped. It was doing all sorts of things. And I went, snow and swimming just do not go together. So it was quite a challenge for me because everybody else had gone down to the lake edge. They'd set out tarpaulin for all their gear. And I was, my mind was going, nah, this is stupid. But in the end, it was like, well, they're all down there. They look as though they're okay, so I'm just going to have to pretend that I'm okay and go on down there and join them. And by the time I got on the lake, I was okay, and the mind had stopped playing games so much. But yeah, so yeah, three of them got in first, and they did anywhere. I don't know. They were in there for a little while. And then Duncan and I got in, and we had it on, and our waters read a K. So we thought, oh, if we can do a K in this, and that was 4 degrees, maybe we can do this thing called an ice mile. So we came out of that trip and started doing some research. So the next year we went to Lake Linden, and we just basically asked a number of our friends that we thought were pretty strong swimmers. A lot of them had been open water, like Cook Strait, Foveaux Strait, Lake Taupō, etc. swimmers. So we thought they had a reasonable chance of success. So there were 12 of us that went down, 12 swimmers, and probably a similar number of supporters. We had our camper vans down in Springfield camping ground there. I don't think they ever normally got camping ground, camper vans down there in the winter, but we were there. We drove up to the lake each day and set out a course, and we were pretty naive and thinking, oh yeah, we could do a 500-metre one day, a 1K the next day, and a mile the next day. We've since realised that that's a really stupid idea and way, way too much for most people. However, 6 of the 12 of us managed to do it, and which was pretty phenomenal. Although all of those 6 had done one of the big swims, so I think that makes a difference. Having that kind of acclimatization in cooler water and for longer periods of time. So, yeah. So then I came out of going, okay, I've done my ice mile. That's it. We can pack up, go home, and think nothing more of this stuff. And then as everyone was leaving, they all said to me, oh, I'm coming back next year. I'm keen. I'm really keen to do it next year. And I'm thinking, that was what I was thinking, but okay. And then within a couple of days, my husband and I were going, well, we could do this and we could do that. And so we kind of got hooked. And I think the ice swimming is like open water swimming. Once you start doing it and you find that it's your thing, it's like, yeah, feels like home.
Yep, you're in. And so just for listeners who don't know what ice swimming is, it's water that's 5 degrees and below. Is that correct?
It has to be 5.00 on the thermometer or less. And even if one of the thermometers is above that, we can't use those things. So we kind of hope that it's a little bit less than that. We were right on the very borderline this year at St. Bathans, so we were sitting on that 4.9 sort of mark, which was a bit nerve-wracking every morning. So you get up and go, is there a frost? And then you go down to the lake, and we just squeaked in for the whole time, which was great.
Awesome.
Actually,
yep.
Made recovery a lot quicker because the air temperature was also above zero. Whereas the year before at Alexandra, the pool temperature was 2.6-ish, and the air temperature at times was like -4, -5. So recovery times, even though the events were shorter, the recovery took a lot longer than we sort of expected.
Right. So at those levels, every degree or even half a degree counts.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
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 So how many people participated this year in the event? Is it something that you're finding is growing each year as more and more people hear about it?
Yep, definitely growing each year. So we had 12 the first year at that sort of pre-ISA event. Our first ISA event we had 19, and it's just grown every year since then. And this year I was sort of taken aback by the number of people who were putting themselves out there for doing the mile, because the mile is a pretty challenging thing to do. But because we've kind of, last year I said, look, if you want to do the mile this year, let's get stuck in and do the 500 or 1K the year before, because to do a mile, you've got to have done a 500 and a 1K before you're even allowed to do it.
Right. So what are the distances that people can enter? Because I know you have an extreme ice mile, so I'm interested to talk to you about that as well. But what are the smaller distances?
Okay, so in the lake, we do 250, 500, 1K, and a mile. Those are our standard distances. And then for those people who have done a mile, they can apply to do an extreme ice mile. So I basically look at what they've done with their mile, how they swam their mile, their speed, um, and their recovery from their mile last time, and decide whether they, in consultation with them, whether it's a good idea for them to do it or not. Because every sort of minute after sort of half an hour-ish is getting more and more dangerous. So my kind of cutoff is 50 minutes. However, we can go a little bit longer depending on what the swimmer is like and what their recovery is like in history.
And you personally have done an extreme ice mile, is that correct? Which is about
Yep.
2Ks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, there's a number of things that you can do a 2K. One of them is on altitude. One of them is if it's under 1 degree, I think. But also you can, the easiest one to do is to do the 2K. I mean, the easiest one to organise. I'm not saying it's the easiest one to actually achieve, but
Yeah.
getting under 1 degree is pretty unusual and difficult in New Zealand. I don't know that we'd even get a lake that was under 1 degree in New Zealand,
Mm.
unless up in a helicopter somewhere, because access is always a problem too. So when you're doing particularly extreme things like that, you want to be able to get quickly and get medical help if you need fairly quickly. Yeah. So going on to my one, I've done 2 extreme ice miles. The first one was 2K in the Blue Lake at St. Bathans 2 years ago, and it's probably the hardest swim I've ever done for the last 100 meters. That last 100 meters was probably the first time I'd ever felt like I was wanting to quit. And I've done Cook Strait, Foveaux Strait, and Lake Taupō. So
Mm.
just your arms are not functioning as well as they could. I think my brain was functioning okay. I could talk to people, and but getting my arms to turn over for that last 100 meters was pretty tricky. However, when I got out of that and a little bit later, I thought, well, in the lake, I probably didn't go as straight as I could have done. I probably did quite a bit more than 2K. So I thought, well, I'm going to try for 3K in the pool, where it's, standard distance, you're turning around all the time. And so last year, I got in the pool at Alexandra, and I managed to do 2.1K in the last 100 meters or so there too. I was feeling fine, but the black line on the bottom of the pool started swaying. And when it first started, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why it's doing that. And then in the last 50 meters, it was like swaying quite a lot. And I was like, nah, it's time to get out. So I actually pulled myself after the 2.1K. And it was interesting talking to the people on the sidelines too, because they said, actually, you looked as though you were swimming in the sea and the
Mm.
pool. So obviously my body wasn't doing what it should be doing, and it was a really good choice to pull myself out.
Yeah.
But both times I recovered pretty well too. So I seem to be able to tolerate the cold pretty well. Not sure why that is. Maybe it's because I grew up in Taupō and swam in the lake as a kid a lot.
Hmm.
And swam early spring right through to sort of autumn. Um, so I don't know. Maybe there's something that as a kid you train it into yourself by the silly things that you do.
I'm curious to know sort of what it feels like because I think the coldest water I've ever swum in is maybe 8 or 9 degrees here in Wellington. And that would have been
Mhm.
a very short dip for me rather than a long swim. But so when you're physically getting into ice water, um, is it painful? Do you go numb pretty quickly?
Um, it's kind of different each time, but a lot of similar things, and different people experience different things as well. Getting it is the hardest because it's pretty tough. I find that in a competition, or like at Alexandra or St. Bathans or at the World Champs, that I was at a couple of years ago, because there's so much atmosphere and hype and things like that, you can get in and get going a lot easier. But the getting under the water, even if it's 10 degrees, getting under the water is the hardest bit. I find sort of that 8 to 15 quite often will get that massive cold headache. For some reason, I don't know whether it's adrenaline or whatever it is, or maybe you just go numb quicker. Um, when it's been under 5 for me, I haven't had the cold headache so much.
Hmm,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, sometimes I do a bit of backstroke there too, roll over, bit of freestyle, bit of backstroke to get sort of under. Um, but you but I found your fingers and toes get quite sore quite quickly. Um,
Yeah, and
and
to qualify
yes,
for an ice mile, you can't wear any sort of protective gear, like no neoprene, right? No gloves or
yeah,
anything. It's just the togs, the cap, the goggles.
yep, togs, cap, goggles, that's it, and earplugs.
Earplugs,
Earplugs
right?
actually make a difference.
And
Um,
that protects you against the cold, does it?
well, I don't think ears are designed for having that colder water on them. So, um, and sometimes they can get really, really sore if you swim in cold water without the earplugs. So I find that the earplugs in all the time, or blue tack. The only thing with blue tack is normally when you swim with blue tack, it comes out fine. When you swim with it in sort of under 5 degrees, you have to leave it in for a wee while until your head warms up and you can actually
Until it
unfreeze.
thaws.
Yeah,
All these little details you might not know unless you're doing it right.
I know.
And there
Um,
must be a lot of other logistics in running an ice swimming event. I know you have to think even more about health and safety. So I know you have paramedics on site and you've got the support boats. And I
mhm.
know that every participant has a sort of pre-swim medical check. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they have to have it's a 2-page, actually 3-page now, document that your doctor has to sign and fill in various things, do various health checks. And also you have to have an ECG, so to make sure that your heart is in good condition, because one of the things about getting into cold water is your heart can do silly things. So we don't want anybody with a pre-existing heart condition, um, or sky high blood pressure or that sort of thing getting into the water, because although we've got the safety measures there, so if it does happen, we get them out and we'll deal with them pretty quickly.
Mm.
But we don't want to have that risk of having people who are unwell getting in and, you know, putting themselves at risk. Um, yeah, the other main thing with so apart from that first part, and also when you're learning to go into cold water, you've got to make sure that you control your breathing and get your breathing under control, because the last thing you want to do is to get a fright. And when you get a fright, you go. So if you do that underwater, then that's getting water in your lungs, which is also not a good thing. So making sure you've had that exposure to cold water beforehand and learnt to get under safely. It is really, really important. The other part that's sort of dangerous is right at the end. So as you're losing your function, you can take on water and other things like that too. And you're putting your body under a lot of stress if you push it right to the limits. And the next part that's a little bit dangerous is when you get out of the water and after you're dressed, sort of somewhere between 15 minutes and a half an hour after you're dressed, you get the after drop. So that's where your blood is kind of circulating through to, the cold blood is circulating through to your organs, and they're going, I don't like this very much, and you are basically hypothermic and you shake quite vigorously. So it's making sure people are warming gradually, and
I
being
saw
looked.
you have I saw you have a packing list on the website of, what people should bring to warm themselves up afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of hot water bottles, sleeping bag.
Yep. So we get people to bring as much as they can, but we also provide things like we've got beds that they can lie down in, the stretchers, um, lots of chairs, and also, warming things afterwards. So having your snacks, which give you the sugar to give you the energy to recover, and also, warm drinks, not really hot drinks, because that actually is not good either. So it's having it's that gradual rewarming, which is really, really important.
Do you envisage with as the years progress that the distances will increase as the ice swimmers get more, as you sort of tick off these different milestones, will there be an extreme ice mile? Will the water
Well,
temperature go down?
yeah, well, we did have an extreme one this year. We had Jackson Arledge, you probably know from Wellington. He was an absolute machine, and he did 2.75 kilometres. Um,
Incredible.
so it is incredible. And next year, I'm sure, 2 years' time, I'm pretty sure that he will be looking at doing further than that. Um, Having that speed, so he's pretty quick. So way faster than I am. So he can actually churn through more distance in less time. So he can just about do 3K when I do 2K. So it means that he can actually up those distances a lot more. And yeah, he's such a character and just got that determination to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you talked earlier about, your first ice swim and just needing to get yourself mentally in the zone in order to get in and do it. How do the ice swimmers, does everyone sort of tend to have a similar process to get themselves in the right headspace in terms of, do they do breathing exercises,
Um,
anything else?
Everyone has their own sort of way of doing it. I mean, I like to sort of look at the water and go, yeah, I can do that sort of thing, and just calm myself, look at how beautiful it is, and sort of do those sorts of things. So everybody has their own tricks mentally and as to being able to get in the water, and but being calm is really, really important before you get in the water. So it's how you calm yourself, and how you talk to yourself. So a lot of it is talking to yourself before you get in, and saying the right sort of things, and not the, just eliminating the negative sort of things. Um, Sort of breathing helps, but you cannot hyperventilate before you get in. So I haven't actually looked at the Wim Hof stuff, but you don't want to be hyperventilating before you get in. That's because that's quite dangerous too. So it's different. I think the Wim Hof stuff is a lot more plunging and sort of just getting in and sort of being in the water and experiencing the water, whereas swimming is very, very different. You need to just calm yourself, control your breathing, get your breathing under control before you put your head underwater. Then once you get your head underwater, you probably find that you're in a bit of a slight panicky sort of bit, but you've got to learn to control that too. So it's learning techniques that work for you. And you do that by talking to other swimmers and, swimming with other swimmers and going, oh, you do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was thinking about training for these events as well. I imagine it's a similar thing where people are swapping advice and slowly, gradually helping their bodies to adapt to cold water,
Mm-hmm.
so that their body is ready for the ice swim. Do you?
Yes,
Yeah.
really important to do that acclimatization. And we're actually really, really lucky now because we've got people in most places around New Zealand. We've got Northland, Auckland, Taranaki, Tauranga, sort of Nelson Marlborough area, Christchurch, Dunedin, and then over in Queenstown, Queenstown sort of area over there, plus random people throughout. So it's quite easy to go, hey, how about you go and swim with Francois down in Dunedin, and he will help you with, various things. So there's a group of them now down there that, the newbies can go and swim with them and learn the tricks and and also, when I was a kid, it was always drummed into me, never swim alone. And I think that's even more so important with the ice swimming. Once you get under 15 degrees, it's getting dangerous. The cold shock and the after drop can happen, anything under 15 degrees. So really, really important that you always swim with somebody. So I just try to buddy everybody up around the country, so they have got that support. And it's always, I think, nicer to actually learn from others in a face-to-face sort of situation, than it is to just read a list of things to do, although we do have those lists as well.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you have also completed some ultra marathon swims, so I'm keen to talk to you about those as well. I know that you've done the New Zealand Triple Crown. So in 2020, you swam Lake Taupō,
Yep.
2021 Cook Strait, Raukawa Moana, and 2022 Foveaux Strait, Te Ara, Kiwa. So first of all, congratulations. That's an incredible achievement. And also to swim them all so sort of quickly one after the other, that's a pretty incredible feat too. Do you mind saying how old you were when you completed the third swim?
I was 61, so
61,
I was the
amazing.
first one. Yeah. When I did Taupō, I thought that was going to be my only swim. See, this is a bit of a pattern here, eh? It was something that I'd kind of had in the back of my mind because when I was, a kid at Taupō Swimming Club, um, name's just got out of my head. The first woman to swim Lake Taupō was Margaret Swaney. Yeah. Um, we had a float. You know how the old Christmas parade floats that you went through town on Christmas?
Yeah.
Well, she was on with us. And so we were all dressed up in old-fashioned swimming togs, which were made from, witches' breeches and those sorts of things, all decorated and whatnot. And yeah, so actually getting to be with her, hang out with her, and know that she'd actually swum the length of Lake Taupō, and yeah, it just sort of sat there for a long time, until we, yeah. So there is a swim across Lake Taupō too, which is the 5K from Acacia Bay to 2 Mile Bay, and because I think I was 8, 9, and 10 when my dad rowed across with somebody as a support person. And I was in the boat with him. And each time I was saying, I can swim faster than this person. Why won't they let me do it? And was pretty angry that they wouldn't let me do it because I was too young. So I think that kind of helped the motivation as well. And then I went on to be a New Zealand rep swimmer in the pool. We did a little bit of open water swimming, like mostly at Lake Karapiro, sort of 2K swims and things like that. But it wasn't really until I gave up swimming and saw Philip Rush and Meta McKenzie and those guys doing their thing with Cook Strait, etc., that I sort of found out about the longer swims. And if I'd gone back to it and done it then, it would have been so much easier. But life had moved on, as it does, and had kids and whatnot, and yeah. And then once I had kids, I spent a lot of time with them and sort of ignored myself, as a lot of mums do. And I try to tell mums these days, make sure that you do look after yourself and take time for yourself and your exercise, so that you don't end up, well overweight and with health problems and whatnot, sort of before your time. I was in my 40s and well overweight and beginning to have some health problems. And I saw the harbour crossing, the very first harbour crossing. And so in 2006, I went, I wonder if I can do that. Got in the pool and swam, worked up to doing 3K and went, okay, I'll enter now. So I entered and got halfway across and went, oh, I'm exhausted. But I was like halfway across, it's like, well, can't go back, might as well carry on forward, and got to the other end. And it was just an amazing feeling to have achieved doing that. After being quite nervous at the start and getting out, and just the bunch of people were amazing. And I got hooked onto open water swimming and was doing the ocean swim series for, I still do them.
Do you? That was going to be one of my questions, whether you still do the smaller swims. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. In Auckland, we've got the Kohimarama swim series every Thursday night over the summer. And that's great because you enter the series and you just turn up, do your swim, have a chat to everybody, get out and then go home. And the ocean swim series, I don't do the full series anymore because just fitting in the other swims that I do, but I usually do at least 2 or 3 swims every year. And I really enjoy it because it's getting in with other people that often you're standing at the beginning of the race and you're chatting away to somebody who's never done it before. And they're pretty nervous. And it's just nice to be able to pass on that good feeling that people care about you and people want you to do that you can do. So just giving people that extra little boost, it gives me a boost too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I get the feeling after quite a break having kids, and you got back in the water and then gradually just started growing your distance. When opportunities came up, you would take them. Is that right?
Pretty much. That's me. It's like somebody who comes along with, it's like, yeah, okay. Think about it afterwards. But yeah, like a friend of mine, been doing the 3K for quite some time and was getting pretty used to it and almost getting a bit blasé and go, oh yeah, I can jump in and do that without too much training. And then so a friend of mine said, how about we do this 10K in Taupō? And this was like about 2 months before, and I hadn't been doing a lot of training before that. So I think we got up to 5K before we did it. And so the two of us jumped in this 10K race, and because it's along the shore of Lake Taupō, it was like I could get out anytime I want to, as you're going along. And the first 3K was okay, and then the 4K was not too bad. But from about 4 to 8Ks, I really struggled because mentally I hadn't really done the distance. I hadn't done the training. And mentally it was really, really tough. So I was very tempted to get out. But then I passed Mike, who was the guy that I entered with, and because his arm was really, really sore and he was sort of limping along basically. So I thought, well, I've got past him now. I can't stop now. So just a little bit competitive and carried on to finish the 10K just before him, which was the last time he ever let me beat him. So, got to have bragging rights somewhere along the line. Yeah.
That's right. And it's always good to have someone to compete with. It can be quite motivating, can't it?
Yeah. So after that, it was, did a number of 10Ks. They got easier. And then they were doing the Epic, which was the 5K, then 10K, then 2.5 all in one day. So entered that, and we ended up, because the weather was pretty awful, at Acacia Bay, going around in circles there. And that's what I was swimming with. Oh, and I was swimming side by side with Katrina Price, and she'd done Taupō a few years beforehand, and I'm going, oh, I can't be that slow after all. Maybe I can do Taupō. So then decided to put that in motion, and sort of had a chat to Phil, and he gave me a little bit of advice, and so in 2020 I set out to do Taupō.
Amazing. And then after you'd completed that swim, was that when you considered doing the other swims in the Triple Crown? Or was that more
Well,
after Cook Strait?
well, I went to because I hadn't had any coaching for a long, long time. I thought I will go see Brent Foster and just get him to check out my stroke and see if there's anything I need to improve. This was before I did Taupō. And he jumped in the water with me, and we looked at my stroke, looked at the speed and whatnot. And I said to him, he said to me, have you ever considered doing Cook Strait? And I said, no, I'm too slow to do that. And he said, actually, there's people that are slower than you that have made Cook Strait, so you should really give it some thought. So once I'd done Taupō, I said to Phil, would I be fast enough to do Cook Strait? And he said, you'd have to do a bit more speed work and whatnot, but we'd give it a go. So that's what we did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions, because I know from talking to other swimmers on this podcast, when you're swimming Cook Strait and Foveaux Strait, you've got to beat the changing tide, and that's partly why speed is so important, so you don't get sort of pushed out away from your destination. Yeah, so how do you work on speed? I don't know if that's a silly question, but I find the faster I try and swim, often the slower I am. Is it
Yeah.
is it something where you stop trying to swim fast and you just concentrate on a certain technique?
There's a couple of things. So if you're always swimming in the sea, generally you either stay the same speed or you get a bit slower, because you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Your speed work comes in the pool. So doing your sets of 100, 200s or 400s, even your 50s and 25s, it's really, really important. So what I was doing is I swim with a squad at West Wave with Sue Pilkington, and it's great because you get in and in the morning before work or whatever, you get the program, you get told what to do. You don't have to think, which is great. And you've got other people to motivate you to swim a little bit faster and to push yourself to go, oh, can I beat them today? Or, and there's that friendly rivalry and lots of fun. So before Cook Strait, I was doing the 6 o'clock session and the 7 o'clock session, and then staying in and doing anywhere between 20 and 30 100s afterwards on a certain time. And that was actually fantastic, because when it came to the end of my swim, the last 2 hours, I had to really, really push it, because the tide was coming in quick and I was going to be swept in the wrong direction. So, and if I'd done that, I would have had another 3 hours of swimming if I hadn't hit shore. So it was having to actually up the gears in that last 2 hours after you've been swimming already for 8 hours. And so doing those 20, 30, 100s after 2 hours of squad, I think made the big difference.
Right. Just having had that practice with sprint training as well as endurance.
So if you're going sort of on 1:45 and trying to hit a certain time, I think and to improve that time each time. And I think when you're trying to improve your speed, you've got to really work on technique as well. Because a lot of people, when they go faster, well, when they think they're going faster, their arms are turning over quicker, but they're losing efficiency. So it's turning your arms over faster and keeping the efficiency, and the number of strokes per length and things like that's really important to be able to keep an eye on that sort of thing as well.
And when you train, you obviously need to have experience swimming in all sorts of different weather conditions because you presumably don't know what's exactly is going to happen on the day.
Yeah.
How do you find swimming in sort of choppy water? Is that something you're quite confident in?
I actually really and well, the choppy not so much, but the big waves and stuff like that, I find it quite fun. Um, so I recently did Rottnest Channel Swim, which is from Perth to Rottnest as well.
Wow.
And we had 2 to 3 meter waves going sideways at us, um, which I actually quite enjoyed, but a lot of people don't. The bit I didn't enjoy was trying to feed because I was either the waves were either trying to push me under the boat or I was trying to catch the boat to get my bottle, and I'd have like a mouthful, have to put the top on and let it go, and then swim to catch up again, and those sorts of things, which is more challenging. And then getting the food as well off the boat when it's that sort of waves is that's really challenging as well.
Mm.
Um, in the end, because the Rottnest Channel Swim has just recently allowed you to use a tow float. So if your kayaker can't cope for whatever reason, and my kayaker couldn't cope anymore, he was cold, he was frozen, and exhausted from battling the wind and the waves, because it's actually harder for them than it is for the swimmer. So to be able to get him out, get him warm, and for me to have the tow float on was good because I could keep with the boat quite happily. Um, that and in the end, I just said to them, "Look, throw my drink bottle over," and I just tied it to my tow float and used that for the last 3 hours, I think. When I was in Rottnest, it was just easier than trying to feed off the boat.
What sort of food and drink do you like to have for a long swim?
A lot of it's just mainly light. I do have water with Magfoss in it too, in case I get cramp. Coke sometimes towards the end, and food I try to keep as natural as I can. So things like ginger crunch or your brownie, those slices, or sandwiches, peanut butter or Vegemite sandwiches. They're kind of my go-to. Um, Occasionally I have gels. I have the gels there as well if I want those. But I find that the natural food actually sits better on my stomach, and it's just square. I'm showing my age there. 2.5 centimeters. It doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah. And
Um,
during your 3 Triple Crown swims, did you have any exciting encounters with marine life? So, some people meet dolphins on their swims or, um, yeah, anything like that.
in Cook Strait, I think they were dusky dolphins. They were fairly small ones. It might have been Maui dolphins, I'm not sure. But they kind of swam perpendicular to us, so underneath me in the boat, and then they'd do a jump or two on the other side, then they come back again. But they zoomed. They were so quick. It was so cool. So they hung around for about 10 minutes or so, and I kept calling them back, but they weren't listening.
No.
Um, it's funny to talk to yourself about when you're swimming.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that would have been pretty exciting and motivating, I'm sure, in that moment.
Oh, it
Something to keep
was. It
going. Yeah.
was. Kind of keeps you motivated to think, oh, maybe wonder if some more are going to come, and that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
Um, Cook Strait, I had a whole bunch of really colourful jellyfish underneath me, and they were actually really well behaved jellyfish because they stayed about a metre or so underneath me. So that kept me amused as far as looking at them, but didn't cause me any problems. Didn't see too many other fish in Cook Strait. Foveaux, mind you, it was pretty rough, so we had quite decent sized swells with a chop as well, for Cook Strait.
Mhm.
Foveaux Strait, to start with, we had huge, big white jellyfish, which looked to start with a bit like the old plastic bags from the supermarket. They just were quite raggedy, and I thought, oh, that's not very cool. But when I was swimming above them, and they were diving down and pulsating, they were perfectly round and absolutely beautiful, especially with the morning sun on them, going down. I did try to avoid their tentacles when I was swimming, and didn't get stung. I felt a few of them on my skin, but nothing too serious. But Gráinne Moss, who was swimming the same time as me, she got a few quite nasty welts on her, from the jellyfish. But yeah, I was quite disappointed in Foveaux Strait because I really didn't see many fish. Sort of saw maybe half a dozen little snapper about the size of my hand, and um, then every now and then there were like swarms of teeny tiny little fish, and they were about a metre under. So yeah, when I was swimming above them, it's like, I wonder what would happen if I go and dive down to them. So I dived down to them and scared the hell out of my crew, who thought there was something wrong with me. Yeah.
Wondering what on earth you were doing.
Yeah. But I'm quite a nosy swimmer. Like, when I went down to a distance camp in Lake Brunner with Pitt and Abel, there was a lot of junk on the bottom of the lake. And every time I went, we did loops. Every time I went round, I would pick something up. And yeah, one of the things I picked up was a big Magnum wine bottle, which somehow I carried back to the shore and put it on the shore. So by the end of several laps, I'd given them a nice big pile of rubbish to take somewhere else.
It's good
But yeah,
multitasking.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you swam the Rottnest Challenge. Have you got other long swims planned for the next couple of years?
Yep. So I also did the Derwent River swim this year as well. So did 2 swims in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So that's part of the Australian Triple Crown. So 34K down the Derwent River from New Norfolk Bridge to Tasman Bridge. So I did that one first and really loved that one because it was so cruisy going. Well, it was with the tide for the last half of it. And it was just so peaceful. I'd started in the middle of the night, and so it was completely dark. And because New Norfolk is out in the country, actually the trickiest bit getting in the water. So I was sitting at the back of the boat, and they said, "Get in the water," and I went, I can't see where the water is." So again, mind playing tricks on you. So even though you know it's sort of there, it's like stepping out into something without knowing where the bottom is, where you're going to put your foot. It was like
Just blackness.
blackness, just complete blackness.
Are you allowed
I
to
was
swim with a light?
oh yeah. Well, so the boat has lights on it, so they shone the light onto the water and said, "Get in." Yeah.
Push.
Yeah. So I got in and got started, and the boat's lit up with lights along the side of it. So I just followed the lights, basically, swam alongside the boat, and just really, really peaceful. But again, I'm pretty nosy while I was swimming, and I found it quite hard to start with because I couldn't even see what the crew were doing. So I could see the lights on the side of the boat, but I couldn't sort of see their movements. And also, there were very few lights on the side of the river either. So that was pretty much in total darkness for quite some time. So it took a little while just to get used to, yeah, that total lack of visual input.
Yeah. And also, you'd be swimming with the current, I imagine, so, and in fresh water, quite a different experience from the ocean.
Yeah, so start with for the first few hours, the tide was coming in, so the flow of the river and the tide was sort of neutral. So you didn't get any assist to start with. But it was just lovely and peaceful and very, very calm. So we'd actually struck pretty much no wind, and so it was lovely and peaceful until we went past one of the factories, and I can't remember what sort of factory it is, but the smell was pretty disgusting. So it was like, okay, keep your mouth closed at the moment.
Just get past it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And there were other bits and pieces, like one spot, there were a lot of, little tree branches and stuff like that, sort of coming at you. So they could donk on you, but nothing too serious. And then another patch where there was, as we got into the river mouth, basically, a lot of patches of sort of some sort of seaweed, sort of mats. So going through that was interesting too.
Mm.
And the
And
seagrass kind of got it everywhere, and I think there's one that makes me look a bit like Sigmund the sea monster, which you're probably too young to.
you mentioned there are three swims in the Triple Crown, obviously. What's the third swim?
So it's from Sandy Bay to Palm Beach in just north of Sydney,
Okay.
the swim there.
Mm.
And there's a swim, but you can also do it with a captain who will take you along.
When you complete a Triple Crown, apart from the enormous feeling of accomplishment, do you get some sort of official documentation, like a trophy, certificate, or your name
Um,
recorded in the
so I've got
Hall of Fame?
for all my swims. Actually, I don't think there is a New Zealand Triple Crown certificate. Maybe that's what they need to do.
I think
I'll have to.
there should definitely be something, yeah, to mark that. Because I don't know how many people have completed the Triple Crown, but I imagine it can't be that many.
No, it's not. It's just over 10, I think, now. I haven't looked it up for a while. Yeah. But the Australian Triple, but it's all on a website, so you can sort of print out bits and pieces. But it would be nice to actually have an official certificate.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I've got certificates for both the Australian ones too. Yeah, but if I can do it the next one reasonably soon, I might be the first person in New Zealand to have done the New Zealand Triple Crown and the Australian Triple Crown. Cool.
Wow, that would be really cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
I know that some of the Wellington swim crowd swims in the Ice Swim Championships. Do you ever come here and swim in Wellington?
Yep. I've swum down that Oriental Bay a number of times, not only in the swim series, the Ocean Swim series, but also just when I've come down and hang out with the Wellington crowd and the washing machines, etc. And they're an awesome bunch of people, and it's like at the ice swimming champs, if you want something done, you just ask the Wellington crowd, and somebody will do it for you. They're such a supportive group of people. And if you get someone who's entered the champs and lives in the Wellington area, they're going to be well looked after. So it's such a cool group down there. And I really enjoy swimming. Yeah.
It's a great community, and I imagine you must have people around the country that you can swim with now.
Oh yeah. Yep. I can go just about anywhere in the country and have someone to swim with. Like when we were on our way back from St. Bathans, stopped off at Timaru and swam with a bunch of people there, bunch of ice swimmers there, which was really cool on my way home.
Cool. Well, Susan, I've really enjoyed talking to you this morning. Is there anything else you want to mention that I haven't asked you about?
I could just mention that my daughter's also done Lake Taupō, so we're the only mother-daughter combo that have done that.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. So she did it before me, so that was part of my motivation to do it as well. So yeah. Yeah, I think just to have a bit of a shout out to all of the ice swimmers and the ocean swimming community out there for the great work that they do without even realizing it, for the health and well-being, mental well-being too of swimmers around the country, because being out in the water, being together, being in nature is just so good for you, and it's what floats my boat basically, and keeps me strong, keeps me healthy, and I just love it.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to finish the podcast. Thank you. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. I know what you mean. Yeah. we're so lucky that we get to swim in the outdoors. Thanks for listening to this episode of Swim Chats. Please remember to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you enjoyed it, you can leave a 5-star rating and review, which helps other people find it too. Enjoy the water, and we'll see you next time.